Hello, my name is Jason Kotecki. I am an artist, author, and professional speaker, and I'm the author of this new book called Must Be Nice, Your Guide to Growing Beyond the Compare Game. The best advice I ever received was from a guy by the name of Shan Stevenson, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But he taught me that when it comes to marketing, focus is important. And of course, they always talk about you have to stay focused on who you're marketing for. But of course, many of us, we want to reach everybody. We want to reach the entire world with our message or our product. And he said, you can't do that. That costs way too much money. But he gave me the insight that I will never forget. He said, you need to, it's sort of like fishing. When you're fishing, you need to pick what kind of fish you're going for, and then you put a specific type of bait to catch that fish. And that's what your marketing is. But he gave me the out. He said, however, if a different fish jumps in your boat, you're allowed to eat it. And that gave me permission to focus my marketing on one thing, but to allow the universe and serendipity to bring other potential customers into the boat, and that it was okay to eat it. So he gave me permission to finally focus.
Wow. Yeah. I remember, Sean. That's great advice too. That's really great advice, Jason. So congrats, man, on the book and for using that. So how do you use that? Where is your pool? Who do you fish in?
Well, the biggest thing we focus on is what we call helpers. And so our message resonates the most with helpers. And by that, I mean people in healthcare, people in education, people in law enforcement, psychologists, people who are in what they do because they want to help people. And unfortunately, in those careers, the payment and the compensation isn't always very high. And there's usually a really high level of burnout. So we get in there and we remind people of why they do what they do, encourage them, inspire them, give them some tips for managing the burnout and the self-care and stuff. And that's who we focus on. But I've had the good privilege of speaking to a lot of other different organizations and companies over the years because they heard about me from something else. And if it's a good fit, we take them on, even if it's not necessarily something we would have originally marketed to in the first place. And sometimes what's cool about that is when a fish jumps in your boat and it's a good fit, you're like, oh, well, I can now do more of that. And now I have a testimonial from that type of fish to get other kind of fish. So that's been kind of how our client base has grown over the years.
That sounds pretty fishy. I like it.
Yeah.
Very good. So cool. So helpers. So that sounds a lot like almost like we're looking at what their value is, and their value is service.
Yeah.
So service businesses like that, that's interesting to me. Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. And now Jason Kotecki says, look for the helpers. So I like that, Jason. That's really good, man.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Rogers is a big hero of mine, and and it's weird because even something like in the financial industry, we do a lot of work with credit unions, and credit unions are different from banks in the why they operate, right? So they're a little bit more, like, nothing against banks, but they're much more focused on the helping the community aspect of things, and so they're also kind of a good fit. But we didn't even realize that until a credit union came and they're like, hey, could you speak to us? And we're like, well, you learn a little bit about what they're about, what they need, and it was a good fit. So yeah, we like helpers because I think that's what Kim is a former kindergarten teacher, my wife. And so we have that deep down, that desire to help people, which I know you do as well, Phil.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah. Well, it must be nice to have a wife that was a kindergarten teacher, huh?
Well, I'll tell you what's even a better must be nice, especially for speaker colleagues, is it must be nice to have a wife who is involved with your business and manages all of the contracts and travel arrangements. I'm pretty sure almost every one of my speaker friends hates me for that. But it is a must be nice, and we try to take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's define that, Jason, because that is the thrust of the book here. Must be nice. And we were talking backstage here about how you figured that out at my first NSA convention, probably your second or third or fourth. Must be nice. So what does that mean, Jason? Must be nice.
Well, it's a phrase I know everyone watching has heard and has probably said, probably recently, right? When we look at someone in our family, in our neighborhood, one of our colleagues, something good that they've accomplished or are able to do or enjoy, you don't have to go very far. You just scroll Instagram or something and you'd be like, oh, must be nice to be in Hawaii right now, or must be nice this, or must be nice that. And that happens to me a lot, and especially as you kind of referred to at a speakers convention several years ago. I was watching all these amazing speakers on stage, and I was fairly new at the time in my career, and I kind of threw a little pity party for myself as I was sitting in the audience looking at all these amazing people and pointing out their must be nices, right? So one was a former NBA player, 7 feet tall. Must be nice. People want to hear him tell his stories about facing Michael Jordan. Then there'd be a woman who was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, well-known, famous, popular. Must be nice, right? Even the dude on a unicycle juggling fire, it was like, well, must be nice to have that skill, right? And what's interesting is, like, never once did it cross my mind that guy didn't come out of his mother's womb juggling fire on a unicycle, right?
Come on, he did too. What are you talking about?
Into it. And it was that moment that I realized that I had a must be nice that I wasn't even using, which was incorporating my artwork into my speaking. I kind of saw them as silos and separate. And I was like, someday if you actually dive deep into your must be nice, you will be on that stage. And people will be in the audience saying, oh, must be nice to be an artist and to be able to have beautiful artwork that goes along with your stories. And then people want to buy the prints to capture that message and take it home with them. And lo and behold, in 2021, Kim and I got to be the opening keynote speakers at the National Convention in Las Vegas. And my freaking title of the talk was Must Be Nice. So if that wasn't a completely full circle moment, I don't know what was.
Yeah. Well, and you designed a lot of the graphics around the convention.
Yeah, I've been able to do that a few times to create some of the backdrops and logos. And yeah, so again, when I first started, I started out as an artist. And when I got into speaking, I was like, oh, that's a separate thing. And I realized that what makes us awesome is the brand. I talk about it in the book, actually, is the idea of a talent stack, which actually comes from Scott Adams, the cartoonist who started Dilbert. But the idea that instead of being the best in the world at something, we just need to pair some complementary talents together and be in the top 20% in the world, which, if you think about it, is really not that hard. If you think of a family of 5, if you're the best person in that family, you're in the top 20%, right? And so the talent stack for me of being an artist and a speaker and a writer, I mean, there's not a lot of artists that want to be on stage, Phil. So that right there is kind of a unique thing that sets me apart. And I believe that we all have a must be nice, and our job is to figure out what it is and make the most of it. It doesn't make any sense to waste our time wishing we had someone else's must be nice.
Yeah. So, okay. So family of 5. So I'm thinking about, let's see, my mom, my stepdad, my 2 brothers, and me. Well, that's pretty easy. Yeah, I know that I'm the best. So
Yeah.
what if you're at the bottom, though, like my brother Patrick is? What do we do with him? Do we just kick him out of the family, or how does that work?
I'm not saying that you are the best in your whole family at anything.
I'm so confused.
I'm saying you probably have a skill, like maybe it's cooking. I don't know. I don't know enough about your family, Phil, to know what thing in your family you'd rank number 1 at. And perhaps there's more than your brother, but I'm sure your brother has other things he is the best in the family at. So,
yeah, well, we'll go with that. I'll just trust you on that because, yeah, no, just kidding, of course. So, and no, both my brothers are very talented guys, and it's fun that we can joke like that. But really, let's talk about that, Jason. How do we find are must be nice, because that's the thing I think a lot of us struggle with. Because you say, okay, we've all got something we're good at. Sure, Jason. How do I find that? Like, where do I figure that out?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways, and I think that the first thing is to understand is that we do sell ourselves way short, because again, I think people think they have to be. They can think of other people who are better than them at a certain thing, so then they automatically discount, like, well, I'm not good at that because I know someone who's better. And again, you could be in the top 20% in the entire world, and there's a whole lot of people better at you than that thing. So I think that's important to realize, is like, being good at something doesn't mean you have to be the best at something. And so I think if you naturally look at the things you're good at, the things you enjoy doing, you're probably pretty good at them. I think if you ask friends or family members, what are the things you're good at? If you look at what are the things people are always asking you to do, asking you for favors for, because you can do something they can't. So those are just a few ideas to look outside yourself for some of the things that are kind of the must be nices that maybe you're overlooking. And I think that's the thing is the things we're naturally good at, they come easy to us. So we were talking earlier, you're like a natural born connector, connecting people, like, oh, you should know this person, you should know this person, and you've got this Rolodex in your head that you automatically know 5 people that this person should talk to. And for you, it's like, I'm sure it's normal. It's like, that's just how you are. And that's the thing is because we're good at something, it comes easily to us. We think, well, it's not that hard, so other people must also be good at that. And that's kind of the trap, is it makes us kind of undervalue our skills, is because it comes easy to us. And so we kind of overlook it.
Yeah, for sure. And often not only do we overlook it, but then we undervalue it, and we think, well, I can do it, so it must be easy.
Yep.
Not just must it be nice, but it must be easy. And nothing could be further from the truth, because I've tried to explain how I do some things, connecting being one of them. And I'm like, that's harder to explain than it is to do.
Yep.
So that's good. So Jason, so with that, you've got an orange and an apple on your cover. So I've got to know, so like, what's the best apple?
The best apple? Oof.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't actually know the name of it, but I have friends who homestead and they grow apples, and they gave me an apple one day that was like the best thing I ever ate. And they told me the name of it. I don't remember what it was. I'd never heard of it before. Because, they're always like people are always crossing apples. I don't know how that works. Again, that's the thing that I'm sure people who grow apples are like, oh yeah, you just splice this and with this, and it's easy. It's like, yeah, it's easy to just bite into an apple. That's as far as it gets for me. So I don't know. I will say Red Delicious is hot garbage. All right. I don't know why.
I agree with that. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I don't know why that's still being sold. But I think there's a lot of agreement around that one.
Yeah. It's like juicy wax paper. No thank you. So,
and sometimes not even juicy.
Right. Yeah. No. So Red Delicious is the worst. Okay, good. So we've got that. So with that, if I were to answer that question, I would say, well, it depends what kind of apple you like. Do you want it to be sour? Do you want it to be sweet? Do you want it to be extra crisp? Do you want it to be a little bit softer? Do you want it to be available year round? Are you looking to give it away? Are you looking to put it in a pie? Would you like it in a little hand pie, right? Remember the Hostess little hand pies?
Yep.
Right? Those were always good. So I think about that, right? I would think about the same with oranges. I lived in Florida. You know what, Jason? I got better oranges in Wisconsin than I did in Florida.
No. Really?
Yes, I did. Here's why. Florida exports so many oranges when they have them, and actually because of the orange freeze that they had years ago, Florida is no longer really the orange state. So must be nice to live in Florida and not have any oranges. Which sometimes I think that's the other thing, is I'm looking at your must be nices, and maybe they're not really nices. Maybe they're burdens. Is that sometimes maybe possible?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what is an example?
So sure. So for instance, there are things like, I'm kind of technical, To a lot of my friends, they think I'm very technical, but that is not my gift at all. I can translate, I can understand what you're going to say, but it is hard for, like, especially now, because it's been 15 years since I've been in IT. And so I never could code. I have a Bachelor of Arts in computer science. I can't code. My buddy Boris was our coder. Guess what I got to do in school, Jason?
What's that?
Present our code.
Oh, there you go.
Right? So Boris was the coder and I was the presenter of the code.
Okay.
So must be nice. I got all A's, but what was really nice is that I had a Boris and that Boris had me, and together it was really nice to be able to do that. But if I had to actually crank out code, it'd probably take me till Ben was driving before I'd ever get there.
Yeah. So I think it helps if you can match up with people who have better must be nices than you. So I can definitely relate to that with Kim. So like I said, she does a lot of the sales and outreach to clients and stuff, and which is amazing because she has a background as a kindergarten teacher, which they are the best salespeople in the world because they're so nice and they want to be helpful, which the best salespeople are. But because they're so nice and they're used to like tying people's shoes, the client has no idea they're being sold to. They're just like talking to a really nice person that wants to help, which again is what the best salespeople do, right? So she is sort of an undercover salesperson for that. But to your point earlier too about like things that we are good at that are a little bit of a burden. So I actually got my start as a speaker speaking to kids. I would come into schools and do cartooning workshops, and I would teach kids how to do a comic strip. And I was good at it. I was really good at it. And I would come home and I would be fried beyond belief. It was like it was not something that was sustainable. And so, but when I got in front of adults and talking about similar themes that I would talk to with the kids, I would be alive. And so I have learned that I need to say no to things that I might be kind of good at, to kind of focus on the things that are why I'm here. So,
yeah, that's cool. Well, one of the things that I love most about your book is the illustrations. You do such an awesome job of putting them together, stretching them across pages in perfect ways. One of the things that, in addition to that, they just make so much sense along with them that it's almost like, not that the words aren't wonderful, but the art is so good that like I could hang every page on here. This is one of my favorites with Gordon Ramsay, Mr. Rogers, Mother Teresa, and then who is that?
Amelia Earhart.
Oh, that's right, Amelia Earhart. So it's hard to see in there until I get here because it almost looks like she's got like Spock ears or something.
Yeah.
Is that Princess Leia? No, that's not right. So with that, I mean, what comes first, Jason? Do you illustrate and then try to find a point, or do you find a point and illustrate, or do you both?
Both. Yeah. Sometimes I come up with an image that is a really cool visual, and I don't really know what the story is until it's done. Or sometimes years later, I've had things in my sketchbook that I really love, and I just really don't know what the hook is until it just kind of comes to me. Other times I have an idea for a story and I need something to come up with an illustration. But the illustrations are powerful because we're visual learners. And so like even this image over my shoulder, which is the basis for what the cover of the book is, it's apples, it's oranges. The apple is saying, I wish I was juicier. The orange is saying, I wish I was crunchier. And it right there, it gives you the summary in your head. It locks in your imagination exactly what this concept is wishing for someone else's must be nice, right? So yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts is being able to give people visuals that then, like I said earlier, if they buy the print or a canvas of it and hang it in their office, now they think of that story and that message just by looking at it, which is a really cool must be nice. And again, one I wasn't taking advantage of at the beginning of my career. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, one of the lessons that I want to draw out of the book is the idea of the Hall of Fame, I think that's super cool. So talk to us about the Hall of Fame and how that must be nice to be Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting, and I'm actually going to cheat. I'm going to call there's 4 qualities that are from the. I didn't know this until I went there, but did you know that there was a National Toy Hall of Fame before?
I did not.
This is crazy. So it's at the National Museum of Play in Rochester, and they have 4 things. So like Etch-a-Sketch is in there. Mr. Potato Head is in there. Stuff that you were like, oh yeah, of course that should be in there, right? The Cardboard Box was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame, but they have 4 things that are a standout. 1 is icon status. 2 is longevity. 3 is discovery, meaning they let kids be curious and discover themselves through play. And then innovation. So something that really stands out. And I was thinking about this and I'm like, man, we all could be in the Hall of Fame if we use these categories. So icon status is one that's tricky because in today's day and age with influencers and celebrities, it's like we think, oh, I need to be famous. But really, if you think about it, I know teachers, like maybe a PE teacher who is beloved in their school, and maybe they're completely unknown a district over. I would still call them an icon because to all of those kids who had that teacher, they're an icon, right? Longevity, that's another one. So it's one thing to do it for a little bit, but one of the biggest things that I think has been an advantage for me is my stubborn persistence to just keep going and doing it year after year after year after year. Discovery, so again, fostering, it's basically empowering people, right? So that's another thing that if you empower people to be great or empower people to get the best out of them, that fills that category. And then of course, innovation is just doing something that's a little bit different. And so by that standard, those 4 things are something we could all shoot for and be in the Hall of Fame, right? We could be Hall of Fame worthy individuals, which is what our job is. I think that's what we're here for, is to be the best version of ourselves. And you talk about Tom Brady, we call him the GOAT, right? The greatest of all time as far as quarterbacks go. I know my brother still holds on to Joe Montana as his GOAT.
Yeah, good old Dougie.
But I think we're called to be the greatest us of all time. And if you learn something new today that you didn't know yesterday, you're now the greatest you of all time. If you pick yourself up after a colossal fail that you had yesterday and you added a little bit more resiliency to your character, congratulations, you're now the greatest you of all time. And that's what our goal is.
Yeah. Well, I think the wonderful thing is that we all can be part of our own Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty cool, because if we can believe that we are Hall of Fame worthy, I think if we all believe that, we'd have a much better place around us, because people feel inferior. And when people feel inferior, think they make choices they wouldn't otherwise make, because they feel like there's nothing to lose. And I would argue there's everything to gain.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, Phil, is, we've got a Hall of Fame for the sports. We've got a Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Even the National Speakers Association has a Hall of Fame. But there isn't a Hall of Fame for moms or dads or bus drivers or janitors. And I think the question to ask is, like, what would a Hall of Fame janitor look like? What would a Hall of Fame mom look like? What would a Hall of Fame dad look like? And I think we could all answer that, maybe in our own way, but we could all say what that would be. And then my answer is like, okay, then go do that, right? Whatever you are, if there isn't a Hall of Fame, what would it take to be in one? If there was one, if you were the first member inducted, what would it take to be in that Hall of Fame? Now there's your game plan. There's your blueprint. Go do that.
Yeah. And that's a hell of a legacy to leave behind. Mm-hmm. That Hall of Fame legacy. We all have that opportunity to do that for ourselves, with those that we love, with those that we touch, with those that just watch us from afar. We can be a Hall of Famer. Now, that's not to say we don't have bad days.
Of course.
must be nice to just have good stuff on social media, but that's not true,
Yep.
right? That comparison game, I will say, being a social media guy, people comparing themselves against other people on social media is like, oh, hey, Jason, I play pretty good music. I've won 3 Grammys, but I'm not the Eagles. It's like, no kidding. Like
Right.
Don Henley, Joe Walsh, and Glenn Fry. Are you kidding me? Of course you're not the Eagles. 3 out of 4 of them are some of the best musicians of all time, or the Beatles, or insert group here, right? I mean, but you can be your own Hall of Fame. And I think that's encouraging for folks, Jason. So if you wanted to give them one way to get started avoiding the comparison game, maybe it's something you've already said, maybe it's something new, so that they can do that. I want you to think about that. And before you answer that, I want to encourage folks to get a copy of Must Be Nice. This is a great book. It's super easy to read, fun to implement too. If you do some of this, the Hall of Fame thing, the pictures are beautiful. Love the one of the crayons. I mean, I could pick 100 out of here, Jason, that I love. And if you don't know Jason, you need to go to escapeadulthood.com. Check out Escape Adulthood. Fun stuff. They do some amazing, amazing work. They're Wonder and Whimsy Society, all sorts of cool stuff. Jason's art, and sometimes he even shares a classic cartoon of Kim and Jason, which that's how I fell in love with you, Jay. So that's pretty cool. So let's bring her home, man. How do we get started avoiding the comparison game?
I think a lot of it is reframing things. So this one might help, especially this time of year. I don't know that I don't get very many of these anymore, but there used to be a tradition that people would send around the holidays. That was the Christmas letter. All right. Barely even get Christmas cards anymore, but people would use to, and I'm explaining this to all of our millennial friends who have no idea what I'm talking about, but people would write a letter of all of the highlights from the year, had pictures of trips they went on and all Johnny graduated and Susie is now a doctor and blah, 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 blah. And it was almost always the highlights. Basically social media, that's the all year long Christmas letter, which people are sharing the highlights, which is not a bad thing. It's like fun to be able to share the cool things with your friends and family and things like that. But the reframe is to remember that that's what it is. Except for the people who share like their gross bruises that they get on their leg or something. No one wants to see that, by the way. But most of the time, people are sharing the highlight reel. And so I think it's important to remember when it comes to thinking about Must Be Nice is don't compare your everyday to someone else's highlight reel, to someone else's Christmas letter that they're sharing with everyone else.
Great advice. Well, it must be nice to write such a great book, my friend. So congratulations. I'm super happy for you. My best to Kim and the kiddos. Friends, listen and get a copy of Must Be Nice. Go to escapeadulthood.com. Get to know my friend, Jason Kotecki, because it must be nice to have a friend like Jason.
Same, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.